The Prophecies of Aldous Huxley, Part 3, Island and Our Conclusion. As we saw at the end of Part 2's discussion of aponescence, Huxley had previewed some 14 years earlier the underlying philosophy that inspired his final novel, Island. This is the manner in which Huxley envisioned an integration of Eastern and Western cultures, an integration that combined the strengths of each. Huxley described his final novel, Island, as a pragmatic dream. By this, he wished to emphasize that he was not envisioning an unrealistically ideal, perfect, problem-free society. Rather, he felt that every social, economic, and political measure he portrayed in Island represents a reform or innovation that is readily applicable to our world. We simply need to want them. Overall, Huxley's ideal society is one that exploits the strengths of science and technology without becoming a slave to either consumerism or the armaments industry. It is a society that acknowledges the human need for ritual and religious experience without sacrificing the intellect and our cognitive powers to the often irrational demands of dogmatic religious beliefs. And finally, it is a society in which democracy and democratic values are more than a political ideal. Rather, democracy is conceived in the fashion John Dewey envisioned it. Thus, democracy is more than a form of government. It is primarily a mode of associated living. Hence, the society is so constructed as to help build strong, nurturing communities that nonetheless understand and accommodate those weaknesses built into human nature. In Huxley's ideal society, the biological sciences, rather than physics and chemistry, are emphasized. This is because it is believed that the life sciences are most directly concerned with human welfare rather than consumer technology. Human intelligence, not evolution, is deemed potentially the progressive force in human life. Thus, our potential is as creative, humane problem solvers. This constitutes an inspired view of Darwin's theory of evolution. It assumes humans are a work in progress whose potential for improvement is yet to be fully actualized. This is the foundation for optimizing human growth and brain functions for all individuals, not just an elite. Importantly, Huxley does not depict the culture in Island as a perfect society. Rather, it is one that optimizes human growth by enhancing our problem-solving abilities. A perfectly harmonious, problem-free society is not possible, in part because, as Huxley writes in Island, 1/3 of human suffering is irreducible or unavoidable. This is the kind of suffering that humans do not inflict upon one another. Rather, it is the suffering inherent in the human condition on account of illnesses, accidents, and natural disasters. A central theme that emerged in the educational writings of Aldous Huxley during the last years of his life was his concept of the nonverbal humanities. His assessment of its role in our development and education is stated succinctly in Island, where he has one of his characters make the following statement. By themselves, the humanities don't humanize. They're simply another form of specialization on the symbolic level. Reading Plato or listening to a lecture on T.S. Eliot doesn't educate the whole human being. Like courses in physics or chemistry, it merely educates the symbol manipulator and leaves the rest of the living mind-body in its pristine state of ignorance and ineptitude. For Huxley, the central purpose of the nonverbal humanities is the training of our awareness. This means training both our awareness of internal events as well as our awareness of external events. The training of internal awareness is designed for the cultivation of our capacity for internal subjective experience, specifically a self-transcending visionary experience of the ecological unity of humans and nature. Such an experience is cultivated through the nonverbal humanities and thereby provides a profound insight into the central human identity. The nonverbal humanities are represented by several techniques, meditation being just one. Taught at an early age, these techniques are considered part of a lifelong educational objective of self-training for fully functioning human awareness. After over 50 years of research on meditation, we have been able to more fully appreciate the important contribution that it can make to human welfare. Its benefits include enhancement of the brain's neural circuits, boost in the neurotransmitter dopamine, and consequently improve mood and the treatment of stress. There are many recommendations that Huxley advances in Ireland that can now be seen in some schools. Meditation is but one of them. Let's summarize just a few more ways in which the vision Huxley advanced in Ireland has emerged in our society today. In Ireland, Huxley coined the term neurotheology. It is the study of what is happening in the brain during a visionary experience or mystical consciousness. Only a few years after the publication of Ireland, neurotheology as a field of study began to emerge as scientific research on meditation practices was launched at several universities. This research, along with our understanding of biological stress, opened the field of holistic health and fostered our appreciation of the mind-body connection in human health and welfare. In the schools of Huxley's Island, they teach destiny control, not because they believe we can fully control all aspects of our destiny. Early childhood experience and nutrition are still critically important. Rather, what Huxley had in mind is very similar to what psychologist Carol Dweck refers to as a growth mindset. These strategies are designed to increase our sense of self-efficacy by helping us appreciate the role of individual effort for self-improvement. Such ideas underscore the understanding we now have that while individual effort is needed for human improvement, it is more likely to emerge not only when we have a positive vision of our own potential, but also when we recognize that our own sustained efforts are required for it to unfold. Indeed, measures of this sense of self-efficacy is deemed a better predictor of success in college than the SAT score. Ultimately, Huxley seeks to emphasize that faith in our own problem-solving potential, activated, sustained, and developed by our own efforts, is more critical to human welfare than any set of dogmatic beliefs. This constitutes a faith in our capacity to inquire, to discover, to learn, and to understand not only the external observable world of science, but also the domain of internal awareness through which we gain self-understanding. Hence, we cultivate the human potential through our continued efforts to understand the external and internal worlds we occupy, and thereby resolve the problems which will always emerge in human life. This constitutes the true fulfillment of the human potential. Huxley underscores these ideas in a significant passage in Ireland. This statement emerges from a text within the novel that constitutes the philosophical guide for residents of Huxley's pragmatic dream. It is among my favorite quotes from Ireland, so I will share it now. Huxley writes, "Faith is something very different from belief. Belief is the systematic taking of unanalyzed words much too seriously. Paul's words, Muhammad's words, Marx's words, Hitler's words, people take them too seriously, and what happens? What happens is the senseless ambivalence of history. Sadism versus duty, or, incomparably worse, sadism as duty. Devotion counterbalanced by organized paranoia. Sisters of charity selflessly tending the victims of their own church's inquisitors and crusaders. Faith, on the contrary, can never be taken too seriously, for faith is the empirically justified confidence in our capacity to know who in fact we are, to forget the belief-intoxicated Manichae and good being. Give us this day our daily faith, but deliver us, dear God, from belief. In the final analysis of our summary of Huxley's main theme in Island, it is important to observe that Huxley recognized that no one reform, no matter how significant, is enough to improve the human condition. Rather, we live in an interconnected web of social, political, and economic institutions, all of which shape our lives down to the cellular development within our brains. This interaction between brain development and culture is what I term our neurocultural ecosystem. It is an ecosystem of interacting forces which is captured by this passage from Huxley's Island, where he writes, "Patriotism is not enough, but neither is anything else. Science is not enough, religion is not enough, art is not enough, politics and economics are not enough, nor is love, nor is duty, nor is action, however disinterested, nor however sublime is contemplation. Nothing short of everything will really do." As stated at the outset, I have only sought to briefly summarize Huxley's three prophecies. There is so much more that could be said, especially about the novel Island, which constitutes his last prophecy. It is a book deserving of much more attention than it has received. For those who are interested and ambitious, in addition to Huxley's own works, you might consider looking up my own book published by Routledge in 2015 and released in paperback in 2016. While readily available on Amazon, the book unfortunately is not cheap, since it was published by an academic press. However, you should be able to find a copy in most major college and university libraries. If nothing else, the book just might provide a cure for insomnia if this presentation hasn't already. And that concludes our presentation on the educational prophecies of Aldous Huxley.